Mic check 1, 2. Almost live. And we are live again. Although this is a 100th kind of test to test all my sound, all my software and cameras and everything. Although I have to test this, I'm also live. So why don't I give some value? So I found a topic to talk about in this section about photography and video and making videographers and photographers better at their crafts and business. I'm also sharing my knowledge to the world and my experience because I'm already 15 years busy as a photographer. In 2004, I was graduating photography at the photography and video school in the east of the country, of the Netherlands. It was the Fotonica in Ede, Wageningen. Maybe some of you students out know Wageningen also as a university. And I was studying there photography. So I actually was doing the last year twice because I got such low grades that I thought by myself, I'm not going to do this with a 3 on my report, on my diploma. So I refused to get a diploma with that number. So I wanted to do the last year twice, which gave me the advantage to do also twice the times of a internship. So the first internship was in a big studio. Back then it was called the Highlight Studios in the north of the country, in Zwolle. There I did a interior photography. So my job over there was to paint actually the walls of the interior. And then we made like student rooms and baby rooms and office rooms at a normal scale, of course. Because the furniture was sold in the magazine. So we did like every day we did 4 rooms to photograph for a half year long. So we did like literally maybe 100 rooms during that period. So I learned a lot about lighting those interior stuff. So I learned quite a lot about lighting in the studio in that internship. So the second internship was in Nijmegen at the east of the country, where I learned a lot about architecture photography. And I learned how to photograph buildings and when to shoot, because you really depend on the angle of the sun, of the day, of the daytime, to photograph the interior or the exterior of a building. So I did that for 5 months. So I really had a lot of experience. And at that time also the digital age was introducing itself, because I was photographing back then and had also a big workshop of this camera, the Fuji S2 Pro. For some of you out there, maybe you know this camera. And this camera was quite special because it has 6 megapixel, which interpolated into 12 megapixels. And this also had a higher density because of the form of the pixels. And this is a little bit geeking out on this stuff. But we've come a long way since then. And because of that knowledge of that camera, it was based on a Nikon D80 body. So I have that body right over there. I can show you for just a second. So this is actually a film camera. This is not a digital, but a film camera. And this camera is the F80 of the Nikon. And this camera, this body, I mean the Fuji S2 Pro in 2004, 2005 back then, was based on this body. So I knew because of the workshop all the buttons and all the ins and outs of the camera, and that's actually the story why I eventually chose for Nikon to choose to photograph with Nikon. We also had a lot of cameras on the school of Nikon, and of course there's always this discussion, oh, which one is better, the Canon or Nikon, but I never cared about that. This was my education, so it was logical for me to choose for a Nikon body, and then my system built out until now. Right now I have also Fuji, and I also use Panasonic because of the digital age, but this is quite interesting to share your story about why I have Nikon right now. Well, I also had the advantage to do 2 exams. So the first exam, my theme was fashion. I did fashion photography. That's why I have also a network of models and makeup artists in my network. Well, but I don't do a lot of assignments anymore for fashion photography clients. But I do make a lot of portraits, because the second year I did my exam, that my theme was to make portraits about Indonesian people or Indo-European people who are living in the Netherlands. And this project was quite special because 15 years afterwards, I'm still busy with this subject to photograph portraits of Indo people. And well, the main project which I'm working right now is photographing not only in the Netherlands but also those people out of the country. So the name of this project is IndoWorldPhotoProject.nl of .com. You can Google it and you will find it. And right now I'm already at photographing like 100 people in the Netherlands, and then I will do 250 people more in the Netherlands and also out of the country. So I'm making a world trip on this December. So this is the actual situation in which I am in my career, in my phase right now. But I also want to tell you how I started. And the story is, actually I was working part-time already in a photo store in Wageningen. It's called the Carl Super Photo Store. And right before it was bankrupt, I left Wageningen too, and I replaced it for living in Utrecht. It's near Amsterdam. So when I did that, I also wanted to have a job in the neighborhood and not want to travel anymore to Wageningen. So I applied for a job at the Media Market. Here in Europe, we all have this. It's like the B&H a little bit, but B&H is more in America and more about photographic stuff. But I was at the department in the Media Market. It's an electronical store where I sold a lot of digital cameras and video cameras. In that store, and because of that job, I knew a lot of cameras itself. I knew I also had the first camera of the D90 back then, also a Nikon, which was the first camera who could film on HD quality. So Nikon was the first. After that, Canon and Sony, and they won the market since then. But I also had a career in sales. Because of that, because of my job at the Media Market, I was a salesman. So I sold cameras, but my heart was really to become a full-time photographer. And although I did it part-time, it was really difficult for me to combine working for a boss and working for my own. And although I could see my own business growing the first 3 years, because I got more assignments and I got better at photography and I got better at business, I can send invoices and such, I would see my income growing at the side. At that point, I was maybe doing like 1,000 euros a month, or maybe even less, or maybe 200 to 500 euros a month. But it was also the conditioning in the Media Market itself that I wasn't happy, because because of the environment. There was this artificial light. There was no daylight at all the whole day, because if you want to have a break, you only have 15 minutes, and then you can get in the canteen, or you could go for a walk. But it was a hassle because you had to be scanned before you go out of the store. And by security. So it took also a little bit of minutes just to make it easy for yourself and just not to go outside. But it's also difficult to go outside because you have to go through downstairs and everything. So the environment wasn't quite natural, and the only sense of the weather you had because of the people who were coming inside with summer clothes or with rainy clothes on, so you could see, oh, this is the kind of weather. But this is kind of stress situation, and there was also alarm bells going off all the time. At that time, it was very stressful, and the only reason I worked there was because of the money. And it wasn't that much, but I also was spending the money at the media market itself because of I loved cameras and such. So no, although I decided, I didn't dare to make the step to go full time as a photographer. And the reason why I say that is because I took it in steps, because I was frustrated and I was sitting in a computer and I was like, what would happen if I would gather the courage to stop with my work? What is needed for that? Well, I was like, well, the first step is actually you put on paper. You have to do it with paper and have to write down that you're going to stop. And then you hand that paper to my manager, and the manager will, fire me because I want to stop. I knew that they wanted to keep me because I was a good salesman at that time. So, but I was creating in my mind a scenario. But to make it real was like, okay, let's make this letter. So I wrote a letter. Thank you so much for this experience. Thank you for this job. I learned a lot, but I have decided to stop and go full time for my photography business and go after my heart. I hope you understand, but I'm going to quit, and sign it, and assigned it to a name, which was my manager. And I was like, okay, this sounds good. This is a good paper. What if I fold it and put it in an envelope? What would happen? So I put it in an envelope. And then I was like, what will happen if I put that envelope in my bag? Could I bring it with me? This maybe also gets the feeling like, okay, this is what it looks like if you're going to quit, you know. So then I said to myself, well, I just put my bag in the closet, not the closet, but what you can close. So you have the word for that. You have that on those college schools, but I think you know what you mean. And I was like, I had to work that day, and I had the letter in my bag, and the bag was in the closet. And I was thinking, well, what would be a good timing if I would do this? And actually, I think I knew I decided, because there wasn't many clients. There were maybe a few, so I helped maybe 2 or 3 clients. But in my head, I was thinking, I'm going to quit. And I had this moment, that moment of epiphany behind the computer. There were no clients in the media market. And I was like, this is it. I feel my hands sweating at that moment. I remember till the day from yesterday. So I went downstairs. I got my letter. I went downstairs again to my manager. And I said to her, today's today. And I smashed the letter on her desk. And she looked at me. And she didn't even look at the letter. And she looked at me. And she said, that's no surprise. So this is the story how I actually began quitting my job and began my career in photography. Since then, I always been a full-time photographer. And maybe another time I can tell you the story about the career path from 15 years ago. But I think I feel good to share this with you Facebook fans. If you like this story, and if you maybe have any comments or questions, please leave a comment. And you can really help me by liking not only this video, but also go to my YouTube channel, because I want to grow my YouTube channel to 100 people. Right now I have 28 since the last time I've asked you to like it and hit the bell button. So with 100 people, then I have more momentum, and I will try to make a video every day of value for you. I hope you like also the studio, the sound quality, and everything. So awesome to share this with you guys once again. And have a nice night. I'm going to eat now because I haven't eaten yet. All right. See you later. How do I stop this?